All right, everybody, welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, professional grade game calls made for every hunter.
If you're trying to get close with elk, turkey, predators, or waterfowl, Phelps has you covered.
That's right, so go to phelpsgamecalls.com. Get them close. All right, here we go. Part 2. Justin is back in studio. What up, man?
What's up? So you were talking last time we were in here. Wasn't long ago. You were talking about a book that you read about black-tailed deer. You read it, and you went out and you saw tons of black-tailed deer.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So Trophy Blacktail Science of the Hunt by Scott Haugen, and it's amazing how I met Scott Haugen actually, because he's not a local guy. He's from Oregon. He originated down there. Hunted coastal blacktails and every other kind of blacktail. Had a TV show sponsored by Trigicon to this day, I believe.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
To this day.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
been probably like 15 years. He was supposed to have a black bear book. I'm not sure what happened to it, but I was talking to him in probably 2012 when I was talking to him, and
Oh,
he was like,
I remember
"This
that
thing just
'cause-
came out."
yeah, you and I were both talking to him, yes.
Was it at the Cabela's? So I was down at Cabela's doing my my hours for Master Hunter program.
Yep.
My
Voluntary stuff?
volunteer hours. Yeah. So that's where I met him down there. They had like a day of a thing going on there. So it was kind of one of those things. I get some time with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and that, and then I moved on to get my Master Hunter program certificate and all that other stuff. But since gave it up and moved on. But met Scott there, and he was talking about this book, and I was pretty fascinated by the seminar he put on that day. So I got the book, read the book, almost nonstop. I mean, I barely can read a book, so I could read.
He's not saying he cannot read.
I'm very
He's saying-
literate. I just my attention span, my eyes get very heavy quickly, and then I can see like the letters start to float, and then my head falls back, and I wake up and I think it's tomorrow, and it's been like
And that's just reading blueprints.
yeah, right. Well, blueprints is another story. I can hang there. Schematics, blueprints are my thing. But yeah, so I read the book, and I had a timeline in mind where I was going to finish it right before the season started, so everything would be pretty fresh. And so did that. Went out the weekend before scouting, and literally, like things that it talks about how the blacktail behave, what they're looking for, what they're thinking, which is kind of one of the weird things, or the theory behind their strategic positioning was very intriguing.
Mhm.
I was like, man, this kind of makes sense. And so I started looking in these spots that the book had highlighted. I had highlighted them too. I'm like, I don't know. I gave you the book. I don't know if
Yeah,
I might have marked it or something. But
there is a couple marks. They're not really highlighted, but
highlights like an
yeah.
underline or a star or something, parenthesis or something. Anyhow, I notated that this is important. Problem with highlighters, they soak through, and the next page is highlighted too. So I don't. I quotated the part I wanted to remember or read again, but started just looking at these spots, and I would see a spot on the hill with my naked eye, and I'd pull my binoculars up, and boom, there's a deer right there. It's like, yep, there's one right there. Going on, oh, there's one right there. Same thing, just by looking for spots. So that was very not only eye opening, but amazing to see that you could actually just take the words and the experience of somebody else and say, here's where I find deer typically. Here's their thought behind why they're there, and this is what you should be looking for, and then take it to the field and it actually translate into there's a deer standing in front of me right there. I would have never have spotted these deer. Maybe it would have, but I would never have picked these locations based on my own assumption that there would have been a deer standing there. So that was to me, invaluable.
No,
And Dave, by the way, I want my book back too.
yeah, I think I have that.
I know.
half
I
the
figured
trick
that.
is just figuring out where to look. And then the other trick is getting close.
Yeah, once you figure where they're at,
No. There's a in between that. You gotta get the wind right before you try to get them close.
Right. You want to know what's funny is before a couple of years ago, I didn't even pay attention to the wind.
Hmm.
And my dad never wind checked anything. When there wasn't anything I was taught to check was the wind. So prior to 30 years old, I never checked wind. And it wasn't until I was watching something that on Hush In or Elk Shape or one of those YouTube channels where they were constantly hitting the wind, probably born and raised because they're hitting that wind checker like every 5 minutes. Where I was like, oh, maybe I should be doing that.
Well, so elk, they will typically always come in downwind.
Yeah.
Where deer, they'll usually just come in. Like you're not like, I bet this deer's going to circle downwind for me. But an elk will always typically, like almost, unless you get them in the prime rut and you have everything going on, they're coming in.
Which how I shot my bull.
A bull will typically circle around and come in downwind.
If you're calling it in, yeah, it will always do that. So when I got my bull, I got the drop on them. They didn't know where I was, and I just spanked his butt. I didn't have to call or do anything. Well, I did chirp a little bit on a cow call, but it was different circumstances. But yeah, they will. So you really need to know your wind.
Sure.
With blacktail, they use their eyes a lot. Their ears a lot.
Yeah.
So they smell you. Like they'll come in and they'll come in any direction.
Sure.
But they'll come and they'll look. They're more curious. They'll look and they'll listen.
Then their ears will go 360.
Yep, and they have their own set of behaviors that they take.
Right.
But blacktail, they typically will freeze. They think you can't see them. Like if
I've noticed the same behavior with whitetail.
Well, until they
I can't
verify.
speak to muleys. I haven't really hunted any muleys.
Let's say you have a whitetail, right?
Yeah.
Wide open, they freeze.
Mm-hmm.
You move closer, what are they going to do?
If they got their eyes on you on a dead bead, they'll take off.
If they see you moving, they're gone,
They
right?
see you move, you're gone.
And it's like a twitch.
Yeah.
You can move your eyeballs, and they're like,
Yeah.
Well, blacktail don't do that. Only sometimes.
It's only up to 40 yards, man.
Yeah, they'll stand
No,
there.
I'm not joking. It's 40.
I have a theory in my head, and probably everybody else does too. But a lot of times, if I see a blacktail and they stand up and they're standing there looking,
Yeah.
I'll look down or away.
Oh, okay, you won't make eye contact.
I won't even pretend. I pretend I don't even see them.
Right.
I'll keep doing my thing because they'll just stand there.
Mhm.
So if I'm walking through the woods and something stands up, unless you're too close and you spook them and they bound off,
Right.
jump them clean, they're gone.
They'll usually stop around 40 and look back, though.
Yeah, they're like, what is that? Because they're like, am I being chased? What's
Right.
going on? What was that? I feel comfortable. I'm in a good comfort zone, but I need to know what that was.
Yeah.
If they smell you, then they're probably gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So,
They're in the next county.
yeah, they will go and go. But they don't necessarily have to come in
Yeah.
downwind. Like elk would prefer to do that.
Hmm.
And I've had elk come in not downwind, but I've also had them try circle me, and I've played leapfrog over. If you could picture like a bouncing ball going down a road, a flat road, bing, bing, bing.
Hmm.
I was the bouncy ball on the mirror side of that road,
Okay.
underneath of it, bing, 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 trying to get in front of it. So it believed that I was an elk. That elk thought this elk's trying to get down my wind. And then he would try to get down my wind, and I would hurry up and get down his wind. And so he's fully convinced this is another freaking bull trying to come downwind. And and then I raked a tree when I got to the point where I couldn't get any further in front of him, and he came beelining right to that sound. And my buddy didn't shoot. That was a 5x5. I could have easily shot from where I was standing while I raked.
Why didn't you shoot, Dave?
Different buddy.
Oh, different buddy. Different Dave.
A guy named Chris. Guy named Chris. So he didn't shoot that. And there's times I'd missed elk in front of Dave. I missed elk in front of Dave. So I've had my chances, but a lot of times throughout the years I have hunted with new people and people that just was like, you know what, I'm cool with calling. I get just as much joy out of calling the elk and celebrating with other people that shoot them. I don't have to be up front,
Right.
And with newer people, you can't just put yourself up front because you've shot with them and you see that, okay, they can shoot a bow, but can they call an elk? Do they have experience doing that? They need some other help to get the animal close enough.
Right.
So I've taken that role on and I enjoy it.
Right.
So that's why I've kind of backseated myself intentionally to do those things and have more of a team atmosphere.
Sure.
And that was pretty much me this year with Mike. I had him as the shooter and just sat back and called. And I actually have a lot of fun calling. It is fun. This year it did suck that I called in probably like 4 or 5 different groups of hunters, but I was just like, hey man, did I sound good? Like, dude, we thought you were a bull. It was crazy. So, I get into it. I start raking stuff and stomping around on the ground and stuff. And I don't know, I have fun.
Well, so that book sounds like it was super helpful for you. Not my book, the other book.
Yeah,
I mean, my
no.
book will be helpful for you too if you're listening, but I'm just saying the book that you read, the Blacktail.
Just strictly blacktails in blacktail behavior. Yeah. So super helpful book. I mean, if you're looking for information on if you're well, even if you've hunted for a long time, you're gonna find something useful in everything you read. So if you find something useful, use it.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, it was a Whitetails book. It's called Whitetails Behavior, Ecology, and Conservation by Erwin Bauer. My grandpa gave me this book when I was in high school, I think. And I read it, and it's just about whitetails and their body language and their behavior. Basically like that blacktail, whitetails. And kind of the same thing, except for me, I looked at the behavior differently, and it helped me like follow or stalk animal once I have eyes on it, even if it's spotted me. So like that story where I talk about becoming a bow hunter,
Hmm.
chapter in my book, right? And I put that stalk on those blacktail. Now, even though they were blacktail, the body language, if you watch them, is the same. Blacktail, whitetail, even muleys, I think, from the videos I've seen, the way they move their ears, they pay attention to sound, they put their head down to eat, or when they fake you out and make you think they're eating, but they're not. They're really just watching to see if you're going to move. I used all that information to get closer and go from 300 to 60 yards. Now, I didn't have a rangefinder. It was my first year. 60 yards looked like 100, so I never shot. And I told the guy I was with, hey, I'm sorry, I blew it. And he was just like, I've never seen anybody stalk a blacktail like that before. That was pretty cool. So, but that's another good book. I think that for anybody that's listening, any book that you can find that has solid information for hunting, and that's what you want to get into, read it, spend some time, learn your prey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's tons of books out there, and I don't think you can go wrong with any book that you pick up because all the information that you gather is going to help you become a better hunter.
So speaking of gathering information, if I was to ask Dave, hey Dave, where should I not go hunting? You would have like a little list of areas you're like, I didn't see any animals here, 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 and here, right? So even the bad information, or what Dave would consider bad hunting trip, is good information.
Right.
Because he's like, I didn't see any sign, didn't see this stuff, so I'm not gonna jump in there and primarily focus in that section, but I can use that to my advantage. So even a book that primarily maybe you can't use all the information. If you get one thing, it was probably worth your time.
Definitely, because it's just we always talk about the little nuggets. It's just one little nugget out of that book that you can take and put it in your arsenal.
Right.
You could read a whole. It doesn't matter what it is, a whole book on mule deer hunting, and then you could have been hunting for 15 years, but then all of a sudden there's just that one thing, like, oh man, I didn't know that. Boom, light bulb.
For me, one of the biggest epiphanies I had when we started mule deer hunting years ago, probably 8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, 8
9
years ago.
When you say because we pay attention to the wind with mule deer big time, and so when you think about downwind, I'm sitting here initially I'm thinking downwind is any parallel. So if I had a stick outside the left and right side of my body, it goes out 1.5 miles on each side, right? My scent is downwind every incremental distance left and right of my body for 1.5 miles, right? I got this huge patch of wind that's downwind.
Take up a lot of area.
Well, in my head, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking downwind is every downwind from me, right?
Yep.
So in my brain, I'm going, that's downwind. But I started to sneak up on mule deer based on columns. So I started breaking in my wind into like graph paper grids in my head. And I started thinking like, I have all these lines going across the graph paper, left and right, up and down. And if I'm in this column, my wind's right here. If I can get close to that deer, my column not touching his column, then he's not going to smell me.
Oh, I see what
And
you're
I
saying.
would get
because it's not
close.
directly downwind.
Yep.
Not directly, but
Got it.
he was downwind, but I was parallel with him.
Yeah.
So I would make my column. I would break the ground into columns and think, this is my wind column here.
So how wide is your column?
3 feet.
Okay.
I would think 3-4 feet.
Sure.
But I could shoot for 40 yards.
Sure.
So I'm not going to be close to him. I get my columns, if I get downwind, if I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, I'm almost directly downwind, I would separate my column from his column and try to get closer that way.
That's a pretty good line of thought. That's
Yeah.
why you're an inventor and I'm just a writer.
Well, that was my thought.
I didn't think of that.
I was
Well,
like,
it
makes
does
sense.
it does work.
Yeah.
And it depends because of the area that Dave and I primarily would hunt for mule deer. The wind would just be whipping,
well, 20 miles an hour is a good wind.
Oh, yeah.
especially our archery hunting.
Sometimes it would get really whipping,
Sure.
Yeah.
30-mile gusts, or possibly even more. But
Mhm.
it's typically windy in open areas, and this was not like a swirly. It was just stiff one direction.
This wasn't like high altitude, like mountain mule deer hunting. This was kind of flat,
Okay.
It wasn't like swirly.
hilly areas.
And you could still apply that to any other scenario. You just have to be aware of your terrain, and is this wind going up and hitting a knob and splitting
Sure.
and going left and right
Mhm.
around a hillside. Now you would take your wind column and blow it into on the top of a bowl. It would hit that bowl like when they do a wind tunnel test on a car.
Yeah.
And you see it go over the top sides, and they
Sure.
tell like, okay, we need a little fin here to make down pressure on both sides of the car. It splits evenly over the windshield, right? But if it was all smooth, it would just go straight over the back. But when you hit terrain, that air divides.
Sure.
So you have scent on left and right. So paying attention to all those little things.
You really have to get like, I don't know, use your imagination when you're out
Yeah, it
hunting
was.
these areas.
I would get close. I mean, I have a video of
We would
I was probably like 10 yards from a bedded one, and I snuck in on it just in sagebrush. And it was I was moving a lot because I had to go
You had to go
over a
pee?
hill, down right
You
in
had to
front of
go,
it,
okay.
snuck between directly in its. I mean, it was looking my direction, snuck down between the sagebrush, all the way down below it, up a creek bed, and got right next behind it, and made a little video. It's pretty sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I did the wind column in the graph paper theory. I guess I'll call it that in my head. And
It's a theory until you prove it, then it's fact, right?
that's pretty factual then.
yeah.
As a matter of fact,
That's a fact.
yeah, it's a
'Cause
fact.
it works because I was doing it too, and he was on a different hillside. I was on another hillside, and I'm doing the same thing. And I was close. I almost shot the largest buck I've ever seen in my whole life.
Oh, and you already have a muley?
Yeah.
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 But you don't have a whitetail.
No, I have blacktail, a muley, and I've only shot one buck. I have a couple muley does, but no whitetail. I've never even hunted whitetail ever.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Okay. We need to help each other out because I haven't ever hunted muleys. So I've got whitetail, I got the blacktail. We're both like one creature away from a slam.
Where are you at, Dave?
Oh, I haven't shot any whitetail.
You shot a muley,
Mhm.
muley doe.
And clearly you got a couple blacktail in here.
Well, a lot of those aren't mine. Let
Oh, right.
me see here. So,
But what about this little guy right here?
well,
That was his last
Euro,
year.
that Euro one right there.
Yeah.
And this one right here, those are both mine.
Okay.
That spike on the left, I think, is mine with the fur.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that one is. Yeah,
And then, when I say spike, I'm talking like a 10-inch spike. It's not.
yeah, it's a big old giant.
The big
It's the
spike.
whopper of the woods.
Yeah.
And I killed that bull, and I killed this cow right here is my first one.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, probably like another deer, I guess. I don't even know. I started stomping them for a while there. I was getting like 2 a year, and then I would get like a master hunter second deer.
Oh, yeah.
So when I didn't pull a second deer tag, they had a master hunter second deer tag. So I got 2 a year for like 6 years for a while.
That'd be
It
nice.
was ridiculous.
That's why I was looking at the Master Hunter setup, and I was like, maybe I should go after that. Become a Master Hunter.
Well, it never hurt me, to have that. The thing about it,
Go ahead, Dave.
you hold yourself to a higher standard, right? It's all about being the representation for the hunters in the hunting community to that normal community.
Sure.
So you're putting yourself out there to be a representative of the hunting community to non-hunters through community service, through outreach programs, through how you carry yourself, how you abide by the rules, and there's always this group of people, right? You have like anytime you have a group of 100 people, there's 5 or 6 jackasses in there. no matter what they say, no matter how they present themselves, you don't know their character until they show it, right?
Yeah.
So even within this group, there's a couple guys that have been there in the past that have made bad character reference towards the group in their actions. So there's that stipulation. So some people are like, "Oh, the Master Hunters is a joke. We had these guys in there, a bunch of know-it-alls, and do this stuff, and total negativity." Initially, but it can happen in any group. But
Sure.
overall, as a group, it's a good thing. So, and they provide a lot of community service hours um, towards helping with landowner relations. So a lot of, if you go out in Washington State and it says, "Feel free to hunt," or "hunting with permission," "hunting by permission only," or "must have written permission," all those things are put forth through the Department of Fish and Wildlife and their landowner relations. That happens in a lot of different ways. One being there's an outreach to the landowner, right? The landowner has a need. The need is fulfilled either through Department of Fish and Wildlife or through a Department of Fish and Wildlife program. Or if someone's just generally nice, like, "Hey, y'all, I got this land. You want to hunt it?" They're like, "Okay, no problem. We'll put a sign up there. We can have people come and ask. We can list you on the website. You can sign up for hunting on certain days online." All these different ways, right? But one large way they do it is by having the master hunters volunteer hours on their property.
Mhm.
So when it comes to example, I hunted North Bend for elk. They had a huge problem with elk in town. The golf course specifically, it was in the newspaper and all sorts of stuff where they were tearing up the golf course. So they had these big fences erected, and they're like 10 feet tall. So
Elk fences.
yeah, around the golf course, and so that kind of curtailed it. But the fences started getting really mangled, So they're like, "Well, now we need to fix these fences." So in order to maintain that relationship and to, I guess, harbor good feelings between everybody there, and because they're gonna have to start paying the golf course for the damage
Sure.
because they own those elk. Department of Fish and Wildlife manages those elk. If they become a problem, like if a wolf eats a cow from a farmer's field, right? They have to pay the farmer for that cow because they put them there, right? It's not just, you can't just do what you want with your wildlife. Everybody else pays the price. So the Master Hunter program would come out and do fence mending. They do it on farms all across the east side. When the elk come down and feed, those big hay storage facilities and stuff like that, elk will come down and eat the sides out of those big hay silos, big barns they have, and collapse it because they'll eat the hay right at the bottom and it'll collapse. Now you're talking, I don't know, dollar wise,
That's a lot of money.
tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in hay bales that just rolled down the hill. Because the elk are eating the bottom out of that thing. Basically, the foundation out of this big stack is gone. So it's an issue, and so master hunters do that. And then there are some things when there's issues. I've done hazings where, I don't know if you know, but like pumpkins. So pumpkins will grow on a vine, and they have a flower that buds. Each flower that buds is one pumpkin.
Mhm.
So what happens is the vines grow, and then the flowers bloom, and then here comes a herd of cow elk, and they'll eat 700 or 800 flowers in
That's a lot of
probably
flowers.
no time.
I think I
Well,
need to have a pumpkin patch.
That's a lot of pumpkins, right?
Yeah.
So the farmer's like, "Hey, y'all owe me $100,000 worth of pumpkins," and they're like, "Well, how do we know?" Like, "Well, I got like 72 miles of vine with no flowers, and we calculate every foot and a half there should be a flower.
Sure.
Let's just do simple math, and they can actually calculate what they lost, compare their crop yield to last year's crop yield. They can do all sorts of stuff, right? So the Department of Fish and Wildlife would reimburse them those funds.
Right.
All that stuff is taken,
Or
but they have to. And in this,
so Dave and I was on the program,
Yeah.
where we would go out volunteer hours,
Right.
and we'd shoot fireworks
over
at the yeah.
they call it the crack bang.
Yeah.
So it's basically a flare gun,
Mhm.
and so they would come out right at dusk, like they knew when they were coming out.
Sure.
So basically, it's a hazing to get them to learn not to come here.
Right.
So we had these little flare guns, and you would go and you'd sit in your vehicle, and you'd wait for the elk to come out. And when you see it first, we did an air horn blast.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd see them coming out, and they don't leave. And you freaking load one in the little flare gun, and you shoot it over the top, like at a 45-degree angle.
Sure.
And it goes, and then it boom blows up in the air, just like an M80.
Scares the poop out of them.
Scares them out of the field.
Yeah.
But yeah,
They
so
do the same thing at airports
with the
with
geese and ducks and
shotguns.
stuff.
Yeah. They shoot blanks. First time I heard it at Renton Airport, I was like, "What? Who's shooting? What's going on?"
Yeah, they don't want those things colliding with aircraft taking off,
Yeah.
So, so we would haze them and they would run and they would, maybe it saved who knows how many pumpkins, but no elk were injured during the process.
Right.
And the farmer got their result and the game department got their result and the elk moved on and they got to eat grass instead of pumpkin flowers,
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But as far as going into the program, I would say it's overall a positive. Um, is what you make of it. If you're going to it looking for like hunting opportunity, it's a terrible idea. It's not something that leads you into extra tags. And there's the Master Hunter deer tags, so if you want to do deer, but it doesn't give you extra access to a moose or an elk. There are draws, but there's also 2,000 other people those one tags. If it's in your area.
Yeah.
Or they do like an on-call hunt coordinator hunt. So if you can get drawn for a moose tag, a nuisance moose.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't they do nuisance tags?
Yeah, so a couple things have to line up right, like a solar eclipse. You have to have a nuisance moose for one, which is probably not that common. It might be a nuisance today and then it's gone. It has to be a habitual thing where they can say, okay, we have a problem with this moose. We're going to set up. We've tried hazing them. We've tried whatever. So they go through these other processes first. Then we're going to go, okay, we're going to do a removal. But we're going to do a removal only for 1 week. So you're going to be in a hunt list of like 4 other people. And they're going to call, say you get drawn first. Then Dave gets drawn and then I get drawn, right? So you're 1, he's 2, I'm 3. So they call you up and they say, hey, can you hunt Monday?
You're like, "No, sorry,
Okay,
gotta work."
Dave, can you hunt Monday?
Oh yeah.
Okay, Dave, Dave, you can hunt Monday, Dave. You need to be there at 9 a.m. You're going to hunt till 4. Now you have to travel wherever you're at to that location. Could be in Spokane.
Way up north.
Yeah, it could be any.
That's where
It
it's
could be,
gonna be.
yeah, and be available during those times.
It's not in the Puget Sound, people.
Yeah, and they'll
Stay
say,
away
okay,
from Northwest
you're going to
Track.
be here for 3 days, and you can hunt between the hours of 9 to 4. That's it.
Right.
So, but you have to be like, if you have a full-time job, they don't call you for weekend hunts. They're like, hey, we need you Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And so it could be beneficial. It might lead to some extra hunting, but mainly you're hazing, and I would say the opportunity it's an opportunity, but it's not a reason to do the program.
Right.
If you want to help out, I just was, after I think I was in there for 10 years and I was like, you know what? I got a lot going on,
So then, with all that experience, from being in that Master Hunters program, did you see that article about the grizzly possibly being reintroduced to Washington, and what do you think about that?
I will tell you this. I had an exit interview. I'm probably going to put a target on my back with this. During my exit interview, they said, well, why do you decide to leave the program? And my simplest, if I boil it down to a nutshell, why I decided to leave the program is because under the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Washington State, I watched for 10 years as our resources simply reduced and wonder. I don't understand what they're thinking about and why they decided to do the things they've done, but it hasn't been positive.
Right. Well, I mean,
Well, I mean, you can-
taking spring bear away, and
Not only spring bear, I mean, the blues elk herd is dwindling damn near 0.
Yeah.
There's a problem, and it's a predator problem,
There's
and they're not doing anything about it.
That's not the only problem.
No, I'm just saying that's one.
I'm not talking
That's-
about
that's
in the
just-
blues. In the blues, that could be 99% of the problem, right? In other areas of the state, there are problems as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, how Fish and Wildlife has ran, our wildlife has not been correct.
You're gonna get me preaching, bro.
Well, I don't want to go down a super big rabbit hole, but I mean, I understood why Dave left.
yeah,
Because, I mean, we had a conversation about, this whole thing in general before he even did that. And, I was just like, hey, man, if that's how you feel,
right.
then that's what you want to do. Because you're making a statement. You're making, like, to be a master hunter. I mean, it takes a lot of hours, takes a lot of
Sure.
time, and for Fish and Wildlife, they're looking towards their master hunters for information.
Sure.
And for him to exit the program, like, I think that's a big statement.
Yeah. Well,
Well-
I've got friends that don't hunt Washington for certain species just because it's their words is they don't agree with the way things are going.
Never mind the hunt part of it, right? Let's just say we're 3 people passionate about the environment, right? We're passionate about outdoor environment.
Mhm.
We respect the animals. Of course, we hunt the animals, but like I said, I passed up a bunch of deer. I'm not there just to
They
kill
have
an
to
animal.
be there too for us to hunt.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about the hunt for me. It wasn't about the opportunity. And I've told you tonight, don't go to the program looking for opportunity because it's not a good reason to do it. If you're going to help out and you want to be help with landowner relations, if you want to be a face for the community to the non-hunting public, then you need to do it if that's what you want to do. If you're looking for opportunities to hunt, it's not a reason to apply yourself at that level. When I took the test, and I did all the requirements, and I think there was like 1,800 people throughout the history of the program that had passed the test out of 20,000 people that had taken the test. Not good.
It's like 2%.
It's like
20,000, only basically 2,000 make it. Yeah, that's like 2%.
10%.
Oh, it's 10%. Hey, I'm not a math buff.
If you want to get technical, it's like 1.867, but hey, you could break it down. No, so 1,800 give or take had passed the written exam part of the Master Hunter program out of 20,000 people that applied and took the test. That's after your community service, after your shooting proficiencies, and all the other requirements, right? Background checks, all those things. So people that are willing to do it and be in the program don't even qualify to do it because they can't pass the written exam. So things I've seen. Since I was raised in Washington State, I remember the time when there wasn't any bald eagles, right? Like there was a big deal when I was in elementary school. Like if you saw a bald eagle, it was like a rare sighting, right?
Sure.
They were on the endangered species list.
Yeah.
They had the spotted owl. They was on the endangered species list. There was all sorts of things. Now we see bald eagles in my front yard. I mean, I'm like there's 2 bald eagles that soar right here.
Yeah.
The Puyallup River.
They're everywhere.
They're
They're like
yeah,
crows now.
well, I have a special hatred for crows because of the way they attack the eagles. I'm like, these little suckers. If an eagle would just spin around and grab one of them bastards, they probably would learn because they're pretty smart not to do that, right?
Yeah.
They just don't. I don't know why they tolerate it. But there was a time when there was no bald eagles, and there's been things that happened in all these states, and now they brought them back, and I think they're unlisted but still protected.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're protected. Yeah.
So you're I've seen that happen. That's a good thing, right? Bald eagles don't hurt anybody. I've seen the fishing, especially I fished so much. People say they forgot more about something than they currently know, and that's a fact.
Heard that recently.
Yeah. So I used to fish religiously, and I've seen in every single river total depletion of fish stocks, almost to the point of at some points where they would close seasons down for a whole season because the counts were so low.
Mm-hmm.
And a big reason, hatchery management, complete die-offs a year and a half ago.
Yep.
They had
like a whole bunch of fish got out.
well they had the that creek over here. Daniel fishes it all the time.
Puyallup River?
I don't know. Is it carbon?
No, it's a hatchery down across the Puget Sound. I don't know. I'm blanking right now. Anyhow, we had
Wally?
several 100,000 Chinook smolts that were ready to go.
Mhm.
They were ready to be released, right? And they were almost to the age where they're going to go in the ocean. They're going to let them go. They're going to become adult fish. And they spent a good portion of time and money rearing these in net pens, in the pens, right? Well, we had a winter storm. Wind blows, trees fall on power lines, and the power goes out, right? Well, they had
I
a
remember.
generator system set up, and they had a guy that was living there. And I'm not going to get into the guy, but he was living there in the house that was on the hatchery grounds. And the power went out, and he didn't start the generators. And all the smolts died. It was like 300,000 or 400,000.
You had one job.
Because it wasn't
You had-
circulating in water.
because the
went
oxygenation.
stagnant,
Yeah,
yeah.
You had
oxidation.
one job.
Do you know why? It wasn't just his job. Do you know why those fish died?
Didn't we just say because the water didn't have oxygen in it?
No, he did say that, but that's not why they died.
Oh,
They died because there was no fuel in the freaking generators.
so did he try to start it and it wouldn't start?
I don't know what he tried to do, but he didn't try to put fuel in it when they were bone empty.
Right.
So those are the type of things
So
where
there's two problems there. He
There's-
didn't try and start it, and nobody refueled it.
he probably tried to start it and realized there's no fuel in there, and during a storm he couldn't get enough or any, so that's an issue. But then you look at the management of him,
Yeah.
and you look at like what did they do or what didn't they do to ensure that this person had a checklist
Right.
to make sure that the facility was operational.
Right.
That facility was never operational under emergency circumstances. It was a fully incomplete failure. That's just one. And I mean, it just goes on and on. The list is, you can look at anything. And
So Dave came to the conclusion
that was pretty close to the point.
at the end they weren't getting his money.
More time.
Yeah, outside of his regular hunting tags and all the other.
Yeah, because
Hunting
that
and
ain't cheap
fishing.
either.
No, out of all the hunting and fishing stuff that he does, they weren't getting any extra money.
Right.
That was it.
Hey, man, this is what it is. Everybody's got to leave for a reason,
No, I wouldn't say everybody's got to leave. I wish I didn't, more from my perspective, I feel like the department is not interested in the best interest of wildlife management. They're interested in the perception of managing wildlife
Sure.
because a non-hunting public
I think
doesn't
a lot
know.
of I think a lot of the hunting public would agree.
So that's
Well,
my
in our circumstances that we're in now, they should agree.
Yeah.
Because we already lost Spring Bear. What's next?
Well, they're going to bring the grizzlies in. If you hadn't read that article, and then you're not going to be able to hunt them, obviously. So, in my mind, like you bring the grizzlies in, this major apex predator, right? You reintroduce what's probably already here, as we've already discussed.
They're up in the higher Cascades.
Sure, but they're not prolific.
No. You
You
barely
reintroduce them.
see them.
You're not going to be able to hunt them, and they're going to become prolific.
Oh yeah.
They could easily.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows they have actual numbers on all these things. So I try not to like put the cart too far in front of the horse, other than what we've talked about already with the amount of hiking we have in the Northwest. Every single mountain, just about you name it, in every single part of this state where there's a mountain and a forest, you're gonna have somebody wearing Birkenstocks,
Oh,
hiking on there with
I think you're overgeneralizing. They don't all wear Birkenstocks now. Some of them wear Merrills.
okay,
Some wear
Merrills, or
Solomons.
whatever. What's those other ones? Hokas. They're wearing Hokas.
Yeah. I hear those are
And-
comfortable.
I bet they feel good, and they probably make you run really fast if a grizzly was on your tail. You probably want to get them ultralight Under Armour boots.
Well,
they
we're
stay fresh.
already having a problem with cougars,
Yeah.
mountain lions,
We
don't
pumas,
even-
whatever you want to call them.
We don't even know the extent of the problem we have.
Oh, it's pretty apparent in the bars after 10.
I wouldn't know.
That's past my bedtime.
I would not know. I did
Talking
tell.
to a couple graybeards here.
it's super funny, So I
That's
did.
past our
I
bedtime.
saw a mountain lion. I saw a mountain lion. So when we first moved in this neighborhood,
Yeah.
we had 3 bears in here. They were down by the water tower, and
Mhm.
the Department of Fish and Wildlife came and tried trapping them.
Tried
And
to
they finally got 'em.
relocate.
They finally did. Yeah, they trapped and relocated them. But several months later, I saw a mountain lion as I was driving in the main drive off the road. It was crossing the street, like
Dude, there's some critters in here, man.
Dude, I
Huge
believe it.
blacktail. Huge
believe it.
blacktail.
Yep.
and it was on full speed, like one bound in the middle of the road. Next thing was across the sidewalk on the other side.
He had that cougar after him.
So I called the mountain. I went. You know how you have neighborhood, the next door app or whatever.
Sure.
I was like, hey, saw a cougar on 23rd and whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, they're all over the place down there. I see one every day about 2:00.
That's
Like,
crazy.
Well, they're
Oh,
talking
you
about
haven't.
the
Oh,
cougar you're talking
you've
about.
probably never even heard. So an actual puma or mountain lion. There's a Ferrucci Junior High. There's always one, probably every other year, checking out the kids on the soccer fields, just stalking them.
Wow.
Probably every other year. It's
Needs to
insane.
call Popo.
they move through. So, as far as cougars go, man, I've seen 5 in the wild in my life, and what do you guys see 2 in like 3 days? Like year before last.
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
saw
last
two different
season.
cougars in 3
Did you have a
days.
tag?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
They're on the move when they're moving. I mean, they're not
Yeah.
walking.
So one of our hunting partners, Luke, he's actually been on the podcast as well. Our good friend had one sit down right behind him.
Ooh, creepy.
So we were all kind of spread out, and our other friend, Kevin, he was with me. We had just seen one pass us, and we're like, "Holy crap! What did you just see? That was a cougar, you know?" Blah blah blah. All of a sudden, we get a text like 10 minutes later, and the cougar that we saw was going way opposite way. We're on a whole nother hill. He was like, "Man, I just had a cougar sit down right behind me. Like, just sit down,
Dude,
and
I-
just chilling."
I never
He
saw
was like
it.
10 feet.
That's close.
Never-
I never saw it. I was out by Mount Rainier.
Never seen one?
Not in the wild. I mean, I've been to Northwest Trek. I've seen.
I mean, captivity's one.
Yeah. Captivity's different, but not out in the wild. But I've been in the trails and felt like I wasn't alone. Like this story I'm telling you right now is out hunting, probably just south of the Storm King unit, and I'm going down a trail and it's looking pretty cool because I'm seeing all these scrapes. You know, I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is a pretty cool little area. I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll just post up here for a little bit and see what happens because I like to get a sense of the woods, see what happens after 20 minutes. You know, so sit down and all of a sudden I start to hear this. It's probably been about 20 minutes. I start to hear a purr, not like a little tiny kitty purr, like a big kitty purr.
It's got some bass to it.
From like an elevated position, maybe 40 yards away. It sounded like big. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to leave. So I got up and I left.
That is probably one of the only things that kind of trip me out.
Yeah.
Is a cougar. I don't mind a bear. I don't mind any of those things, but you know, most of us probably played with a cat, right?
Sure.
You grab it by its face and you kind of tussle it around. Its back legs go right to your arm, right? And just start scraping the crap out of you. What if a big cat grabbed you by the throat and started kicking your stomach with those nasty legs? Your
Yo.
guts are on the ground, right?
You do like that one guy.
That's
You
nasty.
Shove your fist down its throat.
He was lucky.
That guy was lucky
You're gonna love this
because
story.
he pulled out half an arm.
Yeah.
You're gonna love this story. I got something to share as soon as we come back from this commercial break.
This section of the broadcast is brought to you by Burpaw, burpaw.com.
Use Ridge15 at checkout to receive a sweet discount.
All right, we are back from our quick break here. Obviously, if you're listening, it was a fraction of a second. But Dave, you're getting ready to talk about a cougar encounter or a cougar story.
Yeah. So I've seen 5 mountain lions in the wild in my time hunting, and all of them have happened in the last 15 years. So pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I'd never seen any. But you were just mentioning like a mountain, like a little house cat, right? So everybody's played with one, and you rough them up a little bit, and they do the little thing. Then they do the thing where they latch on with their front hands, put their mouth on you sideways, and they kick their little hind legs under, and they start going to town on you, right? You're like, oh shit, the little thing means business.
Yeah.
So you let go, right?
Imagine one that's 140 pounds.
Yes. So
Good God.
the scariest thing for me, I had a cougar encounter of
Mm-hmm.
a very dangerous kind. We were hunting here late season, and it was during the rut, and the season was different in like 2001-ish, about 2001. So it was like prime, like right in the rut before they like moved dates around, all this other stuff. So we thought we're going to take this doe estrus. By the way, Moccasin Joe makes the best black-tailed doe estrus on the market.
I have some.
It's good stuff. So we took this Moccasin Joe doe estrus, and we took these little Velcro pads and we put them on our bows, and we covered them with doe estrus. We also had a sprayer. So first thing in the morning, we got out, we put that on there, did our little hike through the swamp area where we always see deer. Got down there, did a little spray, just in this mist bottle, so the wind would carry it better. This buck comes running in, full blast. jumps in the creek, splashes through the creek right in front of me, 25 yards downhill. I had my very first bow, which was a hand-me-down bow of a conglomerate of all sorts of bows.
The Frankenstein?
It was the Frankenstein, yes. And the pins on the bow, they were like, you could hand bend them to where they would be better on the target. With fingernail polish as like the colorant you had for your yardages, because there was no fiber optics, right? It might have just started coming out, maybe like 2004 or 3, somewhere around there. So anyhow, had this thing broadside kind of working towards me, and I took a shot and hit this little tree branch because we're in these little firs and missed it. So moved on the rest of the day. We made a big loop and decided at the end of the day, because it gets dark here about 4 to 4:30 this time of year, we're going to just sit on this opening for the last hour and wait for something to come to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to cross through the Scotch broom, and there was a little log pile, and there was in front of us, there was this little grassy area with jack firs on the right and really little tiny Christmas tree, maybe 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall, really tight trees they had planted. And I don't know if they were going to transplant those trees or if they just were making them really dense in that one spot. But we were waiting for deer to come out of the thick stuff, cross this little grassy area, come out to feed, and then go into the reprod or vice versa. But we had the perfect spot. We walked through about 20 yards of Scotch broom, and then there was this big, like a alder tree with massive leaves. They all had fallen off. And the ground was like, excuse me, the leaves were crunchy. So we walked through there, sit on this log pile, and about 20 minutes later, I hear this little sound. It sounds like you've seen on TV a deer when it rubs its antlers on a tree. It sounds like just a real quick rattle. Shit, that sucker's coming towards us. Like this thing is. There's a buck rubbing a tree out there, right?
Here we go.
Like he's marking his land. He's this is great. And it got a little louder. I was like, oh, it's coming our way. This thing's okay. As long as daylight lasts, he could get close. And I hear a little bit louder. 10 minutes goes by. This sound came from right behind me. I'm sitting on this little log pile. And I was like, the whole time, I'm like, hey, hear that? My buddy, he's on the other side. He's like, yeah, I hear it. Okay, cool. All right, we'll wait it out. Got plenty of time. And then I stood up. As soon as I heard that last sound, it was right behind me. I stood up and I was like, Bill, something's right behind me. He's like, I told you to be quiet. You're going to mess it all up, And this, I couldn't even see it. I couldn't even see it. He stands up too, looking at me. We're looking almost at each other across this log pile. Between the two of us, about 8-9 feet from me and maybe 15 feet from him, so closer to me than him. It doesn't know that he's there, but when he stood up, that sucker took off running. And from this log pile, we could see the road we walked in on over the Scotch broom. This mountain lion took off running and hit that road, and his front feet hit the ground, and his hands fully rotated back towards its tail, and then his hind feet hit the ground, and he was making leaps 15 to 20 feet. And he covered 100 yards in maybe 2 seconds. He was gone. Like he was looping around us.
Yeah.
And my only thought.
Scared him. Meanie.
Bill scared him. So I thought this little son of a gun was watching me, smelling this doe estrus, and thought, can't wait to eat this sucker, for one. For two, what the hell am I looking at? Because it doesn't.
That is not a doe.
Does not look like what I'm smelling, right? So I thought that house cat theory. I thought that sucker was only one step or one thought away from leaping on the back of my back. And at that point, the house cat comes out, right? The bite, the hind feet, all those thoughts come through your head. I literally backed out of there and we walked backwards with pistols in our hand all the way to the truck.
Oh, sure, I would have. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the scariest time. And even to this day, if you think about it, if that mountain lion had decided to attack me right there, I probably would have survived. Be a different person, probably be severely maimed.
Oh, yeah.
But my buddy was right there with a pistol. I would have got bit by that cat. If it decided to leap, that little tiny house cat came to my mind. Like I'm sitting.
No, I mean that's no joke.
Yeah,
That's what they do.
Yeah, I was like, first thing he's gonna do is bite my neck. He's gonna start scratching the hell out of me, and
It's gonna latch on.
Old cat.
It's gonna latch on and do exactly what I.
Do you guys have cats?
No, I
I've
grew
had
up with cats. My mother always had
You ever feed
A cat in the house.
your okay? So were they fully domestic or were they?
They were domestic, yeah.
We rescued some semi-feral cats, these little baby kittens, and we're raising them. They're full grown now. We got Poe and we got Tigress. Okay. I didn't notice that Rosie, our fully domestic cat, did this until these two were doing it. Did you ever figure out what that noise was?
That was their paws rubbing on the floor. They were when she was scooting.
Think so?
That's what it was, yeah. Because it was crawling towards me.
Okay.
So it would go with its forearms and sliding on those leaves and brambles.
Is what that sound, the way you describe it, reminds me of is when we would feed these kittens. I would feed them little pieces of liver from like when we would get a chicken or whatever on my property because I have a farm, right?
Mhm.
And I'd feed it to them. They'd eat this meat. When they get like primal, their jaw chatters like like somebody coming down off
bears do that.
ecstasy. Their jaw chatters.
No, this was
It's
a little different.
creepy,
this
dude.
wasn't a
It's the
chunk-
creepiest thing you've ever seen.
This was from what I can derive from the situation and thinking about. I've thought about it extensively, and
Sure.
especially more recent to the incident.
Mhm.
Every time it would decide to move, its hind legs would be up and its front legs would scoot.
Sure.
It would stop 2 or
Yeah.
3 little scooches until it decided that that's enough noise.
Sure.
It wasn't thinking it was making me alert because I was not moving. I was listening, thinking this is a deer coming my way.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, that was good.
All right.
You know,
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm still good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, that is real close. Like I could tell at this point
Yeah.
in time, like that is directly behind me. And when I turned around, I could not see it
Yeah.
because of the Scotch broom.
Got it.
You know, it was climbing through Scotch broom, and thank God, you know, because if it had been wide open, it might have decided to make a move at 40 yards. You know, if it
And
was
it's
a Scotch,
Maybe.
two bounds and it's on you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, if it-
yeah, definitely.
Well, if it smelled and saw something that was just like, in, you know, because I'm not sure about how much extent of color they're seeing, you know. I know they don't see color like, he couldn't tell that's a solid brown animal right there. But if he
They
said
could tell
that
you
looks,
weren't a deer, though.
I wasn't standing on all fours, you know, but I was sitting on a log. But, you know, who knows what goes through a wildcat's mind? You know?
Right,
It could
right.
have been like,
Yeah.
good enough for me. You know?
Price is right. That guy's looking
I'm
plump.
hungry enough. It smells good, you know. And it was the time of year too. So, yeah, I've thought about that a lot. And
I would.
And so I've always been on edge.
Wild.
Not in a paranoid sense, but I've always been alert after that fact. That was my very first wild mountain lion encounter. So that happened, and my buddy Chris that I hunted with a long time. We were talking about hearing that growl sound when you said you heard that mountain lion growl sound,
Oh, yeah, the purr.
the purr sound.
Yeah, it was like a very deep throatal purr. It was not a bear. I know what a cat sounds like, and that was definitely a big cat somewhere in the trees.
It's got some bass to it.
My buddy Chris, he has a little bit of difficulty hearing, you know. So at this time, Walker's game ear was like a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
People still use it a lot. I mean, it's very popular, but
Sure.
not for archery hunters. It's more of like a rifle guy thing. Now they have things that they're like amplify your hearing just so you can hear stuff
Sure.
without, you know, you can use it anytime, like little hearing aids. But this time they were muffs like what we're wearing now. You know, almost like you're at the shooting range with
Oh,
a
yeah.
little microphone on there.
Oh, yeah, like some walkers. Or
Yeah.
not walkers. I know what you're talking about.
So the Walker
Coldwell
version.
makes them.
Yeah. So he was like, man, I just can't hear because I would always tell him like, you hear that, and he's like, no, I can't hear it. So I was like, you know, you need to get some of those Walker's game ears, man. You're gonna be, then you'll really turn it up a notch. You'll be hearing all this stuff. So the first day he had those, we went back to this area where I'd seen that mountain lion. It's probably been 5 years, and we're sitting there, and I was like, dude, this is like the same spot where I've seen that mountain lion. And so we sit down in this little meadow, and I was like, yeah, it was over this way, but we walked around here and come around. We sit down, and we're waiting in this little like meadowy grass area, watching this little spot where I'd seen some deer. And he puts his Walker game ears on, and I'm like 2 trees away from him, facing the other direction. In 2 trees, I'm talking like 10 feet.
Sure.
You know? So 5 minutes go by, I'm like, oh, I make this little sound, right? He's like, perks up real quick, looks around real fast.
You're evil.
I'm like, stop moving around, man. What are you doing? Stop moving. I think I heard something. I didn't hear anything. Wait a couple minutes. I'm like, make this little cat sound. He gets up. He's like, dude, I definitely heard something. It sounded like a cat. So I played along. I did this about 2 more times. And then I just couldn't handle myself anymore. I started laughing. I was like, dude, that was me making that sound. He's like, dude, I thought these things were making me hear things you couldn't even hear. He's like, that was crazy, man. Don't ever do that again. So I played a good prank on him with with the amplified hearing. But boy, he was up and around, spinning around, looking at stuff like, what the heck? Watching his back. So I played him good on that one. That was one of the times it worked to my advantage. But
I did something like that to a buddy who I took out for the first time. I had a deer decoy up at the cabin. And it was late. We had just got in. And I'm outside. I think I was having a cigarette. And I'm like, bro, come here. Check this out. There's a deer out here. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, check it out. Total shooter. And he's like, he comes out. He's like, what, where? And I pointed out. I'm like, right there, dude, right there. You see? Oh man, that's so cool. And I'm pretty sure I had antlers on it. He's like, oh, that's so cool, dude. He's like, should I get the rifle? I'm like, you better not. It's made out of foam. And he's like, what? Oh, that's messed up, dude. He was so upset, but it was priceless.
If I had a cabin with a spot, I would have a deer decoy set up.
Yeah.
And have my buddies. I had a mountain lion little on a zip line, aiming right for that deer. We'd be sitting on the porch and I'd push a little button, bloop, and that thing would come down like a beeline out of a tree. Smack. Like that deer right in front of all of us. They would probably have a heart attack. Like a haunted house of hunting. That'd be fun.
Well, hey, I would love to hang out all night, but I can't.
Yeah, no, we got it. So thank you for coming on again. It's been a pleasure. And
thanks for having me. I like
fun shooting the breeze, man, talking these hunting stories. And we'll get together. We'll make some of our own. It'll be good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, actually, before we started doing this podcast, we actually might have something going for
next year.
Yeah,
I like it. Let's do it.
Yep. All right, let's put it together. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.
That's right.
Yeah, dude, I would have a total setup on some people like the foam deer. I'm like, oh, dude. Come down a zip line, they would